Hello, how is everybody today? Right, welcome to the She Strategy support call for this week. Now, I got a question from somebody who is going to be taking part in a high-level meeting. It's a first for her. So it's the first time she's going to be taking part at this level with these people. And she really wants to stand out, be remembered for the right reasons. And she's basically, her question is, how does she conduct herself to leave the best impression possible? And what can she do to nail it so that the people around her, who are her bosses and key decision makers in her company, go, that's the person we want for this thing when there's an appropriate role that comes up, right? Or opportunity. So this is my takeaway, summary rather, of everything that I have observed and know to be true. This is what I want you to do. I want you to pull up the structure your message form. What, so what, now what? In fact, if you want one thing that has everything in it, it's the checklist, okay? The checklist, which is in Learn by Doing, okay? And it is the checklist to communicating effectively, to nailing communicating effectively. And in that checklist, you've got the what, so what, now what, and the examples, and that's sort of the left-hand side column of the specific things you need to put in. And then you've got the perspectives. So your perspective and your stakeholders' perspective. This document is key. I mean, you can go through the other documents first to really crystallize your thoughts. The point is this: get out of you and into these documents, the structure, the words, the being thought, the being heard thought organizer. Put it all down, get it all out of you, because you're going to want to, part of you wants to prove, it's just because we're human, how much you know and how brilliant you are, and that you are the right choice, and that you should be in the room, right? So get it all down on those, in those forms. Just let it flow. Everything, anything that you want to get out, put it in the document. Then I would say go outside for a walk or do something totally different. So something physical, walk around, make a cup of tea, something. Move away from your workspace and then come back to the documents. Come back to the checklist document and fill that one in with each category, whittling down everything that you just put down in the other pieces of paper, and always thinking to yourself, okay, what is the purpose of this meeting? There's an agenda, somebody has asked for it. Why is that? What is the purpose of the meeting? That's one. Two, who is the stakeholder in the meeting? Who is the big boss stakeholder? So what do I mean? Meetings are held for many different reasons. I'll give you an example of somebody I know who is the big boss of many organizations and who gets extremely frustrated because requests are made for people to achieve something, do something, get something sorted, but they don't look at it from the perspective of the boss. So they think they've sorted it or they've dealt with it, but actually the purpose, which is like, actually, we need this stuff to happen because this is the bigger purpose. This is the point of everything that we're doing here. They miss that point. So they're stuck in their silos and in their individual roles, as opposed to looking at the big boss's perspective and the actual purpose of whatever it is that you're doing, the organization, the team, the whatever, yeah? So my point is, you've distilled everything that you know. You've got it down on paper. You have made sure that you're looking at everything through the lens of the stakeholder, the big person in the room who needs to go, that's a great idea. That's how this can happen. Thank you for doing it. The big yes person. Make sure it's from that person's perspective, okay? You will want to instinctively add layers of information and all this stuff. No, you keep that till the end, because what you do is, when I'll go through how to do this, but you want to have your ammo, your friends, your fact friends, right? You want to bring them into the conversation later on, but first you want to establish your aha, that is really interesting. I am paying attention to what this person is saying. That's what you want to do at the very top. Right, how can you do this? First of all, stand. Don't sit and speak. Stand, own your space, be comfortable in what you're wearing. When you've showed up to the meeting, you show up early, you're not carrying loads of stuff, You'll have a notepad and a pen, maybe, yes, if you need a laptop, fine, but that's it. Nothing else, no paraphernalia, no lugging things, none of that. You're not sweating, you're not apprehensive. You might be on the inside, but you're not it on the outside. You've done your PowerPoints, you've done all this stuff, all the prep that we go through in She Strategy, and you are there. It's your turn. You stand and you start by not apologizing, not saying, oh, any of that stuff. You deserve to be there. So own your space. And the first things, say 3 sentences that you want to say, are your key sentences. It's what's going to make people make, not deliberate, but because we're human, they're going to make judgment calls about you. So you want your first sentence, 3 sentences, mini paragraph, to be on the nose, something that is ideally an insight, a did you know, but it's not a silly did you know, like, I don't mean silly, but it's like, meaning it's not pertinent to the big bosses. Yes, right? Don't give them Google. Don't reiterate any of the admin-y type or data. No, go straight to the point. There are organizations who make it mandatory to start meetings now with something that they call to the point. And the idea there is that every person, they go around the table and every person gives their perspective, which is that, what I call the tweetable, to the point. What's the point? Get to the point and then give me detail. Get to the point and that's how they start. However, from my point of view, they're missing the step before, which is whose point is it that they're addressing? So that's what I want to get across. It's not your point, it's to the point of the big boss stakeholder. Let's take a step back. You've prepped your physical self, yourself. You have nailed the checklist, having gone through the other forms, being her thought organizer, the structure your message forms, all that good stuff. And then you've got the checklist and you've nailed it. And you've whittled it down to the perspective of the stakeholder, the big person, but also strategically, you need a yes from other people as well, right? Who are the stakeholders who will facilitate. So the big boss might say yes, but you still need to, I don't know, get past some gatekeeper somewhere. So bear that in mind. And the thing is, if the big boss stakeholder says yes, then the gatekeeper tends to say yes, or facilitate, or do something. Now, you stand, you own your space, and you make your statement. It's an opening statement. That's how you need to think of it. Yeah. Don't apologize. Don't thank everybody profusely for being there. Don't do any of that. You make your statement, the what, which is your insight, the product of everything that you know, have observed, the aha moments that you've had. You go to the so what, why is this important? You explain why it's important, how it helps the big yes, always with that big yes in mind. And now what can be done? Of course, you've gone off and you've sorted the next step, right? So you've sorted out if anybody needs to provide extra hours for something, or provide a person who's an expert in something. You've gone and had that chat to say, if we get the okay for this, are you able to? So ideally you've done that as well, or you've sourced an expert. So you say that this is what needs to happen and this is why, and in fact this is how it can happen. I've contacted this, that, the other, these people are free on this day, da 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 da. So you've nailed it, and you've done a closed loop of communication. What does it mean? It means that you don't leave things unstated, unsaid, meaning nobody has to ask you a follow-up question to say, how can this? When can we? Ideally, your thing that you've just said and shared has all of that information. Why? 2 reasons. 1, because again, it cements you, how brilliant you are, and you are the right person, and how you've got everything sorted and under control, and wow. That's 1, so perception of you. But 2, it leaves a space for fantastic information that you have to be shared. So instead of people eating up the rest of the time with questions like, oh, but who can, oh, but when, oh, but all that stuff, they can ask you other questions, which is a drill down, which again elevates you. So there you go. And if you want to go to the next level up, what you do is this. It's the same approach as to, say you're on stage giving a talk, presenting at an event or a conference, something like that. What you want to do is you want to make something relevant to the audience, the people, the stakeholders in the room, because it relates to them, their life, something to do with them. I'll give you an example. One of the She Strategy members, healthcare conference event, and she wanted to get across, I mean, it was a big deal for her because it was the first time for her to take part at this level again. And I can't remember the actual product, but it was something like a digital way of addressing healthcare issues, something like that. And her initial way of doing this was going to be, you know, a typical, this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing it, this is how you can get yours, get in touch, that sort of format. And the transition was to getting her to embrace that if she gets buy-in from the room straight off the bat, that's all she needs to do. She's done, because they're paying attention and they're seeing what's in it for them. So the idea there was like, everybody these days is a citizen scientist and a citizen doctor, right? So I said, you know, how about this? You walk in, again, you own your space, and you just start with a question. How many of you, please raise your hand, have ever Googled or searched for something to do with an illness? I can't remember, you know, like detailed symptoms of an illness or how to deal with an illness for yourself or for somebody that you love. Every single person's hand went up, right? She got feedback of, I think it was 78 or 79%. I can't remember whether it doesn't matter, 78, 79%. And the next person was, I think, was it in the 30s? There's a huge gap between what she was able to achieve in terms of how people related to her and what the next person in the room got. So the point there is, to level up, make it relevant to the people in the room from the get-go. That's it. They're paying attention. I hope this helped. Summary is this. You're in a meeting. It doesn't have to be a high-level meeting, any meeting. Make this the way you approach sharing your brilliance and your information. The structures that we have, always the perspective of the stakeholder, but or try things. Also, you know, go out of your comfort zone and think, what kind of question can I ask at the top that will get everybody to raise their hand, or most people to raise their hand? Or maybe if they don't, it's a laugh and a joke and people can relate, like, oh yeah, sure, something like that. But it's of course related straight back into what you're doing, or what you're going to be talking about. There you go. How to participate in a meeting, own your space, be just in your own stratosphere when it comes to sharing your brilliance in a way that is really relevant to the purpose of the meeting and the purpose of the stakeholder and the whole organization or team. Yeah, because, you know, imagine if you could just fit every piece of the jigsaw puzzle into the bigger jigsaw puzzle. Like, we're doing this because of this, and that's happening because of that, and this happening because of this. Bing! If you have any questions around challenges you have, around something to do with She Strategy, get in touch. I will see you next time.